Yvar went on to go, I think it was 9-5 in that tournament overall, potentially 10-4. There you go, 10-4 must have been for a top 32 finish.
Top 32 is certainly nothing to sniff at, and it's fantastic to see Yvar continuing his trait of using the teams that we are less familiar with. Patrick, no achievements to their name yet, but it could well be that memories and achievements are made here in Utrecht for Patrick.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those matchups where we're going to see Yvar use some slightly off metagame picks, but that also gets us an opportunity to see really what Patrick is made of as a player. But when you're playing up against those matchups that you're not used to playing, how do you overcome them? And especially when you have a team that we've seen in the metagame so far many times before, that Gouging Fire, Ogerpon, Wellspring combination with Chien-Pao, Kingambit, Amoonguss and Fluttermane is a core to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and with the Terra Stella on the Chien-Pao, that is a bit of a tongue twister there. Boosting up for a one-time any move of a different type that it so chooses to go for. A Pokemon like Chien-Pao, a perfect candidate for that. Terra Stella still relatively unexplored in the format. I'm hesitating to remind you of the Terra Stella Armarouge that you went up against Ben in Dortmund.
Let's keep our eyes focused to this match, Charlie. But looking down the list, I mean, look at that Kingambit, Terra Dragon as well as the Assault Vest. A really unusual Terra type now, actually. It used to be in Regulation Set E that it was very common as a defensive Terra type, but Fairy has really overtaken that. So really interested to know if that's going to be important in this matchup. But let's, Charlie, take a deeper dive into Yvar's team.
Well, yeah, Fairy Terra makes a lot of sense in Kingambit to get around those fighting type moves. But Arcanine here for Yvar will be running the Fairy Terra type with Terra Blast, no less. Excuse me, alongside the Ninetales that can set up the snow with its snow warning. You'll have noticed there's no Rain Dance on the Whimsicott because the Archaludon isn't actually running Electro Shot, its signature move. I mean, it makes sense to run it. You get a boost to your special attack when you do. It's a 2-turn attack unless it's in the rain. But at the same time, Archaludon has fantastic stats behind it. And again, with those stamina boosts racking up, going for body press, that is something that you cannot ignore. And Snarl as well, not a move that we see so commonly on Archaludon.
The combination of Breaking Swipe and Snarl here looks really, really good with this, combined with the stamina of body press. You make sure that you stay on the field for a long period of time, rack up all of those defense boosts, and then unleash the power of body press onto your opponent. And that sort of combination really makes a lot of sense to me. One thing I did notice we need to talk about in a little bit more detail is that Ninetales on Yvar's team. Because, hey, it's a Ninetales. Usually it sets up the support with the Aurora Veil, but Charlie, it's holding a Life Orb. It's got Freeze Dry, it's got Blizzard, it's got Moonblast, it's got Protect. There's nothing defensive about this Ninetales whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a good thing it doesn't have Sheer Cold, but Ninetales is bringing the Sheer Cold in this game with that offense. Dazzling Gleam as well as Blizzard going for spread-type damage. Just a really fantastic option, especially when your back is against the wall and you need to claim some kind of victory. And of course, there is that chance for freezing. And that's something that came into the previous game as well. So far, Utrecht is the tournament of the freeze status condition.
One time I've managed to get a double freeze on Blizzard, and it was possibly one of my most favorite game of all times. It hasn't happened since, unfortunately, but definitely maybe something that Yvar has come across or will be wanting to come across this weekend.
I feel like when you get the double, you get one freeze and think, yes, but the double is sort of like, oh, I'm sorry. You know?
No.
Okay.
I love every single second, Charlie.
I take it back. I take it back. But taking a look at how these teams match up into each other, Whimsicott, it's a gritting menace on the field. It can go for so many supportive options, and Encore, that is something that Yvar does have access to, and that could be, you know, that can really turn the tides of the battle in your favor. Great to see Hisuian Arcanine as well with the Choice Band, a little throwback to Regulation Set E, and of course matches up very well into the Gouging Fire as well as the Chien-Pao, going for those big rock slides, and of course where there's a flinch, there's a way. If I were Patrick, I'd be worried about all of the secondary effects of moves going into this game rather than the main damage output.
It certainly could be a big factor. Let's get this game going. Arcanine is on the field, turn one. Paired up with the Whimsicott is Chien-Pao and Gouging Fire there for Patrick.
Tailwind Rock Slide is looking so good right now for Yvar.
It's never looked better.
It really, really hasn't. I mean, you can Terrastallize away from that on one of these two Pokemon, or you might have something in the back to be able to take it better, something like a Kingambit, for example. That's the only Pokemon on Patrick's team that would be taking resisted damage. But then, you know, in return, Chien-Pao threatening Ice-type, super effective move onto the Whimsicott there. But yeah, certainly Yvar looking to be in the driver's seat right in turn one.
One thing thing that I'm really identifying here is that if that Arcanine does go for the Terra Fairy, then the Gouging Fire isn't going to be able to go for a breaking swipe and lower its attack stats. So a really safe defensive Terra and allows you to get the Rock Slide off. It's not going to land, though, into the Gouging Fire. That's switching out for the King Gambit to take that hit just a little bit better.
Rock Slide coming out, connecting into both Pokemon. The question is this Chien-Pao going to be able to act? Is it going to be flinching? At least it's got that Focus Sash, so it's around to see just this turn. Ice Spinner will be connecting down into the Whimsicott. It's super effective. It's not enough for the knockout. A very bulky, supportive Whimsicott here from Yvar.
You love to see it. Whimsicott holding the Covert Cloak means that Yvar's focus is probably more on the defensive capabilities of that Whimsicott rather than trying to be as speedy as possible. That's allowing it to take a hit, just like a Focus Sash would be.
Whimsicott floating away back to its trainer as quickly as it joined the field. And it's time for our Chaladon to come in. Being a bridge over troubled water, Yvar will hope, as Chien-Pao is able to keep itself safe this turn. And Rock Slide, of course, given Arcanine is holding the Choice Band, is going to be connecting down. And now we cross our fingers for Patrick. Are they going to be able to act? Or is the King Gambit going to flinch? And it gets the flinch, potentially the first of many.
Well, that is what happens when you get a Rock Slide Pokemon to be faster than your opponent's team. You're doing damage with that Choice Band on the Arcanine, but you're also sometimes stopping them from getting a foothold in the game. Now Patrick really has to leverage that King Gambit even more than he did before, trying to get a low kick onto that Arcanine. It hasn't been intimidated. If it has, it would have done a little bit more damage. But if I'm not mistaken, the low kick would do quite a lot of damage to the Arcanine, and maybe in combination with a Sucker Punch or the Sword of Ruin, might be able to pick up the KO.
Things are heating up a little bit as Chien-Pao goes to the back in favor of Gouging Fire, or as Lou affectionately calls it, Partiente joining the field. It's got its party hat on, and it's ready to rock in the face of a terastallized Hisuian Arcanine. It's a playful puppy that just got a whole lot more playful, going for that Fairy Terror and letting out its customary howl of victory. But it's going to be a responding Terror coming out from Patrick.
And it's probably going to be, well, in fact, it has to be the Terra on the King Gambit. Terra Dragon actually losing the resistance that it had to Arcanine's rock-type moves here in favor of maybe supporting itself a slightly different way. Rock Slide coming into both of these Pokemon, not enough to get any KOs right now, but clever Terastallization on the King Gambit, avoiding taking damage from the low kick. But wow, it's avoiding taking damage on all fronts here, as that low kick does absolutely nothing to the Arcanine.
Clever Terastallization on the King Gambit, but an equally clever Terastallization onto the Arcanine there. That really felt to me like Patrick's make or break moment in this game, but the low kick just doing negligible damage as a result, and these Rock Slide, the Rock Slide damage is really just racking up over on Patrick's side of the field. It really will all come down to what Patrick's final Pokemon is, but whatever it is, it's not going to love taking a Rock Slide as our Chaladon goes to the back.
On the last turn of Tailwind as well, Whimsicott coming back in, ready to set it up again. Gouging Fire for the Burning Bulwark, making sure that it's not getting knocked out this turn, but that Assault Vest carrying King Gambit isn't able to protect itself whatsoever. Patrick favoring the Pokemon in the back and not wanting them to take any more damage from the Rock Slide on this so powerful Arcanine. It's been here the whole game through.
It has been, but that Rock Slide does finally get a miss, so that's a little bit of an opening there for Patrick, potentially heading into this next game. Love how Yvar cycled in. This Whimsicott now is ready to provide another Tailwind if needs be, having pulled up the drawbridge of that Archaladon that will be lurking in the back along with Yvar's as of yet unrevealed fourth Pokemon. And frankly, there's not much right now that can be stopping this Hisuian Arcanine, and it's looking like it's on really good health as well.
A Tailwind coming up from this Whimsicott, making sure that Arcanine is still the strongest Pokemon on the field. Now double connecting with the Rock Slide, it's a double KO. That Chien-Pao in the back is not looking like it's in a particularly good position. It will be down to a combination of that Chien-Pao and the currently unrevealed fourth Pokemon to Patrick to see if he has a way to come back in this match.
King Gambit on its knees in the face of that Rock Slide. It's finally down and out, and it looks like it is the Fluttermane in the back for Patrick. That's certainly a heavy hitter, and it's holding the Choice Specs as well. So with those on, it's going to be able to identify its target's weaknesses aptly and get a real big boost to its special attack, as well as the 1 HP Chien-Pao, which, you know, it will be reducing the defense of everything around it. That could work out actually against Patrick as well. But still, Yvar has the Pokemon advantage with 4 Pokemon remaining.
The question is there going to be any damage gotten off this turn by Patrick, or is a Rock Slide going to come out and stop that? The Light Screen stopping the Sucker Punch from the Chien-Pao. Rock Slide going off, knocking out the Chien-Pao. The Sword of Ruin active on that Flutter Mane, but not enough to pick up the KO there. Does it get through?
It does not. Flutter Mane is going to be flinching, and that is just salt in the wound for Patrick here, just dotting the I's and crossing the T's as Yvar quite comfortably takes this game 1. Whimsicott for style points wants to get in on the offensive action as well, goes for the Moonblast and delivers the finishing blow there. So Yvar really convincing for, 4-0 in terms of Pokemon at least, victory against his opponent Patrick. And I think heading into game 2, Patrick needs an answer to Rock Slide.
Yeah, normally when we say where there's a Rock Slide, there's a way, we mean, hey, maybe it can get a flinch, or a clutch turn here or there, or make sure that your partner Pokemon can do something that otherwise it wouldn't be able to. In this case, it's like, how do you just stop taking damage from Rock Slide?
Yeah.
And that's what Patrick really needs to go back on the drawing board for. I think the difficulty that he has is the lack of speed control.
Yeah, that's certainly an issue in the face of a Whimsicott that can so easily click Tailwind. And on top of that, no Pokemon that can click Fake Out into the Whimsicott. It's not even got the Ghost Terror of the Whimsicott. It's Terra Water, so Fake Out could be really safe into that slot. It's going to be tricky for Patrick. Of course, the Kingambit has Sucker Punch. You could see in that previous game why Patrick went for the Dragon Terror to take less damage from the Body Press, but it then did take more damage from the Rock Slide, and the fact that it then went for a low kick in the face of a Fairy Terror Hisuian Arcanine, that's just not going to cut to the mustard as mighty as that kowtow is on his head. So Patrick really, I think, certainly Yvar played that incredibly well, but also Patrick perhaps needs to consider a Terror at some other point in the game. That's one of the things it came down to.
It's tough, right? If the Terror didn't go off that turn, the low kick would have knocked out the Kingambit. Maybe that would have led to a little bit of a more tricky situation for Patrick. Looking at game 2, though, what I'm looking at in Patrick's team is that Kingambit. It was in the back in game 1, and that allowed Arcanine to get off onto the field, get the Intimidate off without proccing a Defiant ability, and therefore was just able to sit there doing lots of damage. If that Kingambit comes into the 4-turn 1, gets an attack boost, maybe we're talking about a different game.
It's a really good point, and it's also running Iron Head, so it can be hitting the Hisuian Arcanine for super effective if it does go for the Fairy Terror. But it's not going to be the Kingambit being led in this game. It's going to be Gouging Fire, Ogerpon, Wellspring, Hisuian Arcanine, and Whimsicott once more. Ben, why do you like this?
I love this because of the ability for Gouging Fire to go for a Howl, get the attack boost onto Gouging Fire and Ogerpon and offset the Intimidate. But Ogerpon, most notably, is threatening the early Terror onto the Arcanine, and that gives Patrick a lot of room to maneuver in the way that he approaches knocking out that Arcanine. When the Kingambit potentially comes in, it could come in on the switch in from the Ogerpon and get a Howl off on its own, and then maybe go for an Iron Head once you know what the Arcanine has terrestrialized into.
Hisuian Arcanine running like the Tailwind off the battlefield, and instead it's going to be Archaludon joining the field as Howl does indeed come out from Patrick's Gouging Fire, raising the attack of both of these Pokemon to neutral at least here. Ivy Cudgel free to go off into the Archaludon. It's a Dragon type. It's not going to be taking too much damage at all from that. Unfortunately, no critical hit. Stamina, though, is able to boost up the defense, which could be huge for Body Press later on. There's a Moonblast, gets the special attack drop on Gouging Fire. Doesn't matter so much. It is a physical attacker.
The question here is, how long will it be before the Arcanine comes back onto the field, and at what point does Whimsicott feel like it really needs to go for a Tailwind? Now that Gouging Fire is back to neutral stages of attack, the question is whether or not the Heat Crash is enough to knock it out this turn and stop a potential Tailwind for later, or whether it's not enough because we've seen how bulky that Whimsicott is, and therefore can the Whimsicott go for another Moonblast, whittle down this Gouging Fire a little bit more?
It's a bulky Whimsicott, but it's quite a light Pokemon, and of course Heat Crash comes down to the weight difference between them. So with the Tailwind being set up, Gouging Fire is still going to be moving first. How much is it going to be doing? Yes, Whimsicott is able to survive as Body Press was targeting down that Ogerpon at Wellspring, so well covered there by Patrick.
And a good Heat Crash damage there now into Yvar's Whimsicott. Again, we're in this sort of situation where do you want to knock out the Whimsicott this turn? Do you want to cover a potential switch in there for the Whimsicott? Or do you want to spend the time that you've got while Yvar's in Tailwind, boosting up your Gouging Fire and your Ogerpon, ready for when that tailwind expires, and then you can hit back a little bit later.
Well, that doesn't seem to be the option Patrick's going for right now as Fluttermane, the sociable, joins the field. It wants to be part of the party, and here it is gleaming away as Encore attempts to come out into the Ogerpon on Patrick's side, locking it into the spiky shield, but Howl will be coming out from Patrick's gouging fire. That's going to be boosting the attack stat of, crucially, the gouging fire itself. But Flash Cannon coming out from the Archaladon, Yvar calling a switch up. That's super effective into the Fluttermane. Fluttermane known more for its special bulk, and so is able to take that really, really well.
What a great read there coming out from Yvar, just making sure that regardless of what was going on, the Archaladon's feeling pretty safe in this position, so why not just go for the Flash Cannon? If you don't get it quite right, that's okay. Ogerpon and Gouging Fire really struggle to do damage to Archaladon, especially when it's at one stage of increased defense. So really like that play from Yvar, and certainly one that's going to make a big difference to this mid-game, where the Fluttermane's not going to get as many opportunities to go for an attack. It's now in range of another Flash Cannon. It's now in range, potentially, of a Moonblast from that Whimsicott, depending on how that Whimsicott is trained.
But has Yvar called this switch as Fluttermane returned once more in favor of Ogerpon? It loves being the center of attention, what with that Follow Me move, and is back on the field, but this time Whimsicott is able to encore the Gouging Fire, so that is going to be locked into going for Howl. So now Yvar's going to want to be taking care of the physical attackers on Patrick's side before they lose that encore in order, well, at least the Ogerpon is going to be free from the encore because that was targeting down into the Gouging Fire. Flash Cannon just to cover if the Fluttermane stayed in, going into the Ogerpon for a nice little bit of chip damage.
There's definitely worse things to be encored into in this position, and a really clever switch there from Patrick, making sure that thinking like, hey, I'm probably going to be encored here. Burning Bulwark doesn't block the encore, so would have been definitely a really disadvantageous position to be going for that move in front of a Pokemon with Encore. Might as well switch the Ogerpon in, get another attack boost, and put it into a prime position to be able to knock out that Whimsicott. Most notably, there's a stamina boost onto that Archaladon. If this Ogerpon can crit through that defense boost, it's going to be doing a lot of damage.
Well, now it's snowing on the field, so Ninetales is going to have an immediate defense boost as a result of that being an ice type. But yes, the critical hit chance that would be able to hit right through any other defense boosting capabilities. Body press already doing a lot of damage to the Ogerpon with the stamina boost it receives. Ninetales able to hang around with just a sliver of HP. It's holding the life orb, remember, so if it were to go for a move now, it would be going down as a result of the recoil.
But this is a tricky turn because you want to be able to spiky shield away from the freeze dry that Ninetales has its opportunity to go for. But if Yvar had switched in the Whimsicott there, it would have been able to encore the Ogerpon into the spiky shield and put a lot of pressure back. That's not what happened instead. Just a spiky shield and another how this Ogerpon is really looking like a prominent threat. Blizzard, the follow-up from Ninetales, doing actually really quite respectable damage, but knocking itself out to its own life orb recoil. Now the Whimsicott's getting in for free.
Now the Whimsicott is getting in for free, and that's the end of the encore there on the Gouging Fire, but with Whimsicott just lurking in the back, ready to come and provide another round of applause. That could be could spell disaster for this Gouging Fire.
That's
and
so cool.
Fantastic damage from the Blizzard coming out from the Alola Ninetales there as well. Yes, it went down immediately, but it may well have provided all it needed to on the field in the face of this Gouging Fire.
But now the Whimsicott has the opportunity to go for the encore into the Ogerpon spiky shield. You could follow me with your Patrick to be able to deal with that, or go for a little bit more of a defensive switch, reveal your last Pokemon there and see if that's enough to be able to get a little bit of traction going here. The Whimsicott equally though could just go for the Tailwind, expecting Patrick to go for a little bit more of a defensive play and really capitalizing on it with that Archaladon.
Well, the result of having so many boosts to your physical attack is that you have a little bit of a target on your back. A Heat Crash is going to be connecting down, first of all, into the Archaladon this time. That's a lot of damage into the Archaladon. It gets another stamina boost, but that is fascinating to see how much damage that did, as Breaking Swipe is going to be able to start reducing the attack of this Ogerpon, cutting it down to size a little bit, as Gouging Fire will be going down finally on the field. But as long as Whimsicott's there could be a cheeky encore coming out, but not if the Ivy Cudgel is going to be taking out the Whimsicott. So now it's 2 Pokemon on Yvar's side against Patrick's 3.
a wise tailwind, I think, there. The Whimsicott certainly also had a target on its back, being the Pokemon that can use Encore effectively.
Yeah.
You definitely want to remove those opportunities for disruption in your opponent's team to be able to give you the freedom to play the game that you actually want to play. But here it is back on the field. Arcanine with that choice band in the tailwind. It was a menace in game 1. Game 2, it's not done quite as much work, but it's looking in prime position to just rock slide away for the rest of the match here.
Yeah, it really is. And Chien-Pao, I really like that Patrick's kept this in the back. And I tell you another thing that both these trainers kept in the back, and that is the terrestrialization. That could completely turn the tides of this battle, as Ogerpon is now just at +1 of its attack, thanks to the Intimidate coming in from the Hisuian Arcanine as well. Chien-Pao going for that Terrastella is able to get a one-time boost to any of the moves it so chooses to go for. And for Yvar, it's looking like the Terra option is going to have to be the Arcanine.
Yeah, I think that's probably likely, Charlie. I mean, you don't want to be terrestrializing your Pokemon on just a few hit points here. You definitely want to make sure that the Arcanine is keeping itself as safe as possible. But it's a Terrastella first from the Chien-Pao. What a sparkly cap there, increasing the damage of all of its moves just one time over.
One time, we'll have to see if one time is enough, as Ogerpon will be keeping itself safe and will be dealing a little bit of recoil damage to anything that makes contact with it. Sucker Punch is able to connect down into the Archaladon. That's
Nice.
going to be easily enough for the knockout. That is the Sucker Punch boost burnt on that Chien-Pao, but it still has access to boosted fighting and indeed ice-type moves, as Ogerpon will be keeping itself safe from the Arcanine. The Rock Slide is not going to be enough for the knockout on the Chien-Pao, and crucially, Chien-Pao acting first, so it doesn't have to worry about any flinches.
It's really difficult, right? Because you want to be able to, in Patrick's position, get through the remaining 2 turns of Tailwind on Yvar's side to be able to attack with that Chien-Pao in the end game. You kind of preserve your Terrastella boosted Sacred Sword for the last turn once your Chien-Pao is in a position to be able to go before it. So you have the Flutter Mane in the back. Patrick has the opportunity to switch that in and be able to preserve the Chien-Pao. Then you can go for a Protect on the next turn. Then the Tailwind should be over. You can go for that Sacred Sword. The question is it going to be enough to knock out the Arcanine? And will the Arcanine be able to hit with Rock Slides in the meantime?
Hit with Rock Slides, and also is the Arcanine going to Terrastalize at any point? That's another mind game that's going on here. Unfortunately, the Rock Slide able to take out Flutter Mane and the Ogerpon before it was able to act and get off that Ivy Cudgel that would have been so detrimental to Yvar's Arcanine. So now it's cat versus dog on the field. We're going to decide once and for all which one is going to be taking the crown here. And of course, in that previous turn with the Snow active, the Chien-Pao was able to save that Rock Slide a little bit better because it had that boost to its defenses. It has that Focus Sash on anyway, but now the mind games are real. Do you go for the boosted Ice-type move thanks to the Terrastella in case the Arcanine goes for the Fairy Terror, or do you go for the Sacred Sword hoping that it doesn't?
I think you go for the Ice Spinner. I think that's what I'd be locking in here, because the Sacred Sword would probably be enough to get the KO if Arcanine does go for the Terrestrialization. But if it's... there's no Protect here. It was one more turn of Tailwind left, and Yvar is connecting with the Rock Slide. Chien-Pao is going down this time. Yvar taking this set 2-0.
Congratulations to Yvar Vliga.
Congratulations indeed, Yvar. Really looking quite relieved in that position, especially seeing that all of the Rock Slides did indeed connect with their mark in that end game. Sometimes a little bit of a stressful situation.